Everyone. Um, Today we're going to talk about B form for VTI verbs. So this is really similar to A form. Really similar to VAI verb B form, but now we have an object in the sentence. So we're going to be talking about something that is receiving the action, that transfer of action to an object or an it. Make sure my volume's up. Okay. So this really follows a pretty simple set of paradigms. And so you're going to want to have your paradigm. Sorry, I'm kind of losing my voice. You're going to want to have your paradigm verb list on hand, and then we will go over them. And again, recall that VAI verbs. Sorry, I'm just all over the place today. I apologize. VTI verbs refer to an it, and B form refers to like a dependent form where there is a phrase that is dependent on something else in the sentence to make sense. So these are kind of, most simply put, when, as, or if statements. So when, as, if. And these ideas, when, as, or if, are applied, even though you can add words like gishkin, which translates to if, and a p, which can be translated to when, if you want to emphasize that you're using that phrasing, the when phrasing or the if phrasing. But it's not always needed. Let's see. So again, B form is when you attach the person to the end of the verb. So in A form, we had like a person, verb, and that was hyphenated, and then sometimes you had your plural person here. But in B form, it's always verb, and then person directly attached to the verb, not hyphenated. So the way that that person attaches to the end is going to depend on the letter that the verb ends with, and then it will always follow a specific pattern. Sometimes letters will fall off or change, but then they're going to be consistent with those changes. So I'm going to try and go a little bit faster this time. Let's see. So if we're talking about B form positive, which is a positive statement, not a Gawin statement, and we're using VTI1 verbs, the kind that end in AN, so the most common type. Let's say we like when you see it. So the word for see it is wabendun, and I'm going to put the verbs in red. See it. Wa bun dun. And see, it ends in an, and the English translation is a command to one person. So you could look at one person and say, wabenden, see it. Now, if you recall, in our A form, anytime you would attach a person, that an would extend to AAN, like niwabandan or giwabandan. I see it, you see it. You add another A in here, but that does not happen in B form. So looking at your paradigms, you see mean, keen, lean, keen, oh, sorry. Mean, a wind, keen a wind, keen a wa, and ween a wa. And It's I, you, he or she, us, but not you, because there's no gene included anywhere in this. Us, including you, including gene, and then all of yous, more than one you, ginawa, and then all of them, winawa, more than one he or she. And these, I'm used to, in A form, you see like yan on the end of a word. But since we're talking about, in B form for VAIs, you see this yan on the end of a word. But since we're talking about a verb that ends in an, if I want to say when I see it, we're going to have wa, bun, da, and instead of n here, you get M A N. Wabandaman. When I see it. This is the ending part, meaning I. And this kind of fits with that, like, I recognize it as, it's kind of like that yan, which you see a lot in other words. And you'll start recognizing those patterns over time. So if you want to say when you see it, when Geen sees it, when the, and it's very similar, but now this just shortens from man to mun. So 2 A's, the longer form is I, the shorter form is you. And then in an ending verbs, when talking about he or she, you get when he sees it, or when she sees it, wabanda, and you just add a G. Wabandum, when he or she sees it. Now, I like the patterning here because it correlates with mean. This is us all, or this is us, but not Geen. So, wa, bun, da, mom, and then you get a G on the end. So it's still this form, we just extend it by adding more people in. And I always think of it like, oh, more people, longer version of the word. Us, but not you, wawan demang, the I form, us, I, us. Whereas Ginawind, which is us all, including you, including Gin, that's going to be when we, including you, see it. And it's simply the Gin form with the G. Mung. So us, you. Ginwa, when you see it. Our N turns to an M, and you get that. Wabandameg, when you see it. And then here, when they see it, more than one, they. Now we still get wad in here, like in the VAI B form. We just have to add a vowel in here because the M can't be right next to the W in this case. So wabandamwad, when they see it. Now I'm going to add fourth person, obviated person, also called go Doug, the other one. And in this case, like you're talking about someone who is, you know, the one with the main character energy in your story. They're going to be in the wean position. But since your main character, the one with the most grammatical importance or in the forefront of the story, is already taking up the wean position, you can't have more than one wean in a single phrase. And so when you bring in Ween's friend or Ween's cousin or Ween's brother, you have to put him or her in that obviated person's position. So, you know, Ween was walking, Bimose, when his brother saw it. So like Oshimeyan, his brother, a P when Waban in Nid. So that way we know in that phrasing, the person that did the seeing is the fourth person. Ween didn't see it. Ween was just walking along. Ween was Bimose when his brother, Oshime and his younger brother, saw it. In that case, I'd have a past tense. Gi waban daminid. Waban daminid. When he saw it. Now, typically, you're supposed to have an it in the sentences because that's why we are using a VTI verb. Now, that it could have been named previously, and we already know the item that is being talked about. And so you don't have to be overly repetitive and continue stating what the item is over and over and over every sentence. It just has to be named at one point, and you don't want to go too long without mentioning it again. But again, it doesn't have to be overly repetitive. So this is an ending VTI verbs for when, as, or if. Now, notice down here, I put the gi in front because I wanted to say when Go Doug saw it. And I used saw in English, the past tense of see. So I had to use a past tense preverb here. And it just adds on to the beginning, just like it does when you're talking about wean in A form. I hope I'm not getting too far ahead of you, but I'm going to jump up here and go over how to throw some time tenses on. I guess the whole time I was saying when he saw it, when you saw it, when I meant to state when he is seeing it, and it's hard in English to get that across, but like waban daman, this is when I am seeing it in this present moment. But if we want to talk about when I saw it in the past, we're going to use past tense, which is gi. It's a preverb, so it precedes the verb. Gi waban da man. Gi waban da man, when I saw it. When I saw it, ingi ingi is I was scared. Now the word here in A form, this is an A form phrase. I was scared. And it's A form because it can stand on its own. This is a VAI because there's no transfer of action. It's just describing how a person is, their state of being. And there's a lesson a little bit down the road of this one that talks about initial consonant change, which is the verb is it, he or she is scared. But when "gi" or "we" come before it, it makes the Z become the harder consonant form. So ingiseg is. And I think that's one of those like ease of speech rules where it just kind of naturally comes out that way, and then we're trying to find a way to convey that in the written form. But anyway, I'm going down a rabbit hole here. So you want to say I watched it. I watched TV. Ingi, well, our verb is gonna done, which is watch it. The TV is mazinate sijigun. So in A form would be ingi I did, and then we have our G, it changes to a K. Gonna waban don mazinate sijigan. So ingi kana waban don mazinate sijigan. I was watching TV. But if I want to change it to when I was watching TV, and see my G change to a K because of this here, and I'll have a whole lesson on that, so don't get overwhelmed by it. It's just you're going to see me doing this throughout so that we can get used to it. But we want to say when I was watching TV. And if I just walked up to you and say when I was watching TV, you would be waiting for the rest of the sentence to know what I'm about to say. So that is a B form. And when I was, that's past tense. So we're going to want to start with gi, hyphen. Then we start with our verb, which is, or, you know, gonna wa, the man, mazinate sijigan, ki kanawaban the man, mazinate sijigan. And it seems like a mouthful, but it's not really any different than in English where you have when I was watching TV. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words that all fit into 1, 2 words in Ojibwe with an attached time tense. So it's saying less, you just have a longer word with less spaces, I guess. Yeah, it'll get easier once you kind of practice saying it according to the syllables. Ma zin na te si je gun gi ka na wa bun da man. It gets easier. You can ma zin na te si je gun gi ka na wa bun da man. Those are where the syllables fall, and keeping an eye on those can help you pronounce it better. So if you're ever struggling to say a long word, draw your lines through it and try saying it that way. Another thing is get it into your head and then don't look at the paper and try and say it without looking at the letters, because your line of sight can get ahead of your mouth and that can really throw people off. And I'm saying that as someone who loves to have the words written down. I love writing them. I love seeing the letters. I am a write it and see it kind of person. But I will say that looking up and trying to say it without reading it helps with pronunciation and memorization quite a bit. So let's use like again done. Again done is read it or count it. Again done. Read it. And that's a VTI again. Let's say Mazin Igan a book. And in this lesson, we might have to get a bit into possessives because you're going to be seeing those quite a bit in this B form lesson, the written one. You're also going to be seeing it in the obviatives lesson. Because if you're telling a person, hang up your coat, you would need to say your in front of the coat. But if you're telling our whole class, you guys hang up your coats, you need the plural possessive on the word for coat, as well as a plural, because it's not a singular coat that belongs to everybody. It is multiple coats that belong to individuals. So that can get a little bit confusing at first until you get used to it. I'm still practicing those myself. But now we need to do the negated form. Now in Gawin form and A form, you always need Gawin in front of the phrase, but you don't need it in B form. You just need the form of C that comes on the end. So if I want to say, you are not reading it, that's A form, right? You are not reading a book. That's just a statement. It means everything all together. Gawin Oda Od again dan zine maznaigan. Gawin Odagan dan zine maznaigan. You are no, you, sorry. This is no, he or she is not reading a book. That's mean. For no, you are not reading a book, it would be gid. Gawin gid the gindanzin. You are not reading a book. So I think I had it in my head. I wanted to do the B form for wean, and I wrote it out in A form. So when he is not reading a book, you look at your VTI paradigms for AN ending, B form, negative, and find wean. You will have your verb again done, and then you need your ending that indicates wean as well as a negation. And that is, what color was I using for everything? I think I was using Yedikin done zig. And it's kind of less obvious in B form, but here is our form of C, Z, that is present, that makes the verb not happen. So agindansig, masanayigan, when he was not reading a book, and then you would continue on with whatever else you were going to say. Like, agindansig, Gitim, he was lazy. He Gitim. I actually am not sure about this word. This is a word I learned out east for he or she is lazy, and I don't know what. I need to look that up. Don't take my word for it. I was just trying to be a little silly. He wasn't reading. He was being lazy. Maybe he was sleeping. That's why he wasn't reading. All right, so Zig, you don't need Gawin. you'll just have a form of Z or C on the end. Now, these ones are all going to be a form of Z on the end because they all end in N. And since they all end in N, that triggers the S to turn to Z. And so you'll know it ends in N, we're using B form, and we're negative, so the form of C is going to be with the Z sound, the Z sound. It's almost like a domino effect of rules in Ojibwe. Let's see. When used, we're not reading the book, so that's going to have a gi prime tense. Again done. Again done starts with A. A is a vowel. It doesn't go through any initial consonant change. In done when used. Let's see, that was unziwig. Yes. Z, here's our form of C. Wig. Now that's not too different. The positive form had the egg in there, e.g., like again the meg. Use are reading, but now it's when used we're not reading, or without this time tense, now we're in present. As or if use are not reading right now, again done ziweg. And you hear that zi in there and you know it's negative. So this is where listening comes in. I'm not very great yet at comprehending spoken Ojibwe because it does go quite fast. I'm better at listening to like another immersion teacher talk to their students, but trying to hold a conversation, that's where I'm still struggling because my brain is not translating and keeping up with the speaker fast enough yet. So doing hearing and listening exercises, listening and comprehension exercises by finding as much spoken Ojibwe as you can and just listening to it, even if you're not able to understand what they're saying, you might be able to listen and go, oh, I heard them say ziweg on the end of a word. I don't know what the word was, but I do know that it was a negated VTI, or I know they were talking about the kind of verb that refers to an object, and I heard the Z, so I know it was a negative form. Or you might be able to pick out certain words that you know, and you might start hearing like, oh, I know which persons they're talking about because I'm recognizing some of the phrasings from the paradigms, etc. That kind of thing. So definitely listening is good. And then let's see. Again, done ziweg. As yous are not reading a book, maybe you should do your chores. Maybe you should tidy up, that kind of thing. All right, so let's look at un endings. That was positive and negative. If you want to go through the other persons, they are in the paradigms, which is linked in the Google Classroom, VTI paradigms, and linked throughout the written up lesson. Let's think. Bunetun, leave it alone. That works. Bunetun, leave it alone. And our B form positive. Now this one, it ends with N, but we can't count on that N to cause that Z sound because in this form, the N falls off in B form. Bunitu yun. When or as you leave it alone. So I lost my marker. There we go. So gin, you, when, as, or if. Let's try if you leave it alone. Now, if you leave it alone could be written like un e tu, our N falls off, yun, if you leave it alone, or you could have the word for if. Ish, pin, unituyen, if you leave it alone, dot, dot, dot. This emphasizes the idea of if, but it's not necessary. It just adds more clarification. Unituyen, if you leave it alone, as you leave it alone, when you leave it alone. Now let's do when I leave it alone. That would be tu, our N falls off, and yan. Here's our extended A. If you noticed in our gene, it was tu yun. So this is mean and gain. So our version of ween would be wunitude. I think it's a D. Yeah. Wunitude. Our N falls off and it gets replaced by D. Wunitude. When he leaves it alone. When she leaves it alone. If she leaves it alone. As she leaves it alone. And then we get into our plural persons like Nina wins. That's us, but not you. We get wunitu. Oh, it looks nearly identical. We just added G onto the end. Wunitu yang. When, well, since we are leaving it alone, or as we're leaving it alone, you should too. That's like us talking about us, but not you. We're talking to you about us leaving it alone. Too young. But if we're talking about all of us, teacher, we did leave it. No, sorry, that is not a good example. Let's see. That would be talking amongst the group within we all, everyone present. We left it alone. We gi, that B turns into a P, preceded by gi. Too young, and it's just this form, the gene form with a G on the end. So that makes it gene to win. Us, including gene, young. There. Here it could be like the kids are talking to the teacher, but teacher, we left it alone. Give when it's too young. Just like you said, teacher. Let's see. Quinoa. As yous are leaving it alone, wunitu, that then falls off, and you get yeg, wunitu yeg, quinoa. Use, as yous are leaving it alone, if yous are leaving it alone. And then if we want to talk about winawa, they, more than one, he or she, wunituad. Yep, that N still falls off, and you just get wad on the end. Wunitu, yeg, wunitu, wad. When, as, or if they are leaving it alone. And then if we have our go Doug or obviative fourth person in here, I learned the phrase go Doug, the other one, from Mike Sullivan. So that's what he calls it and what he was calling it in class. And I really like the phrase because it's talking about the fourth person or that other one in Ojibwe. So like that would be to Ned. So we've already talking about Ween somewhere in that sentence, but Ween's friend or Ween's cousin or that other guy that just happens to be in the story who's of lesser importance than the main character, grammatical importance. We're not saying that any person is less important than the other. It's just a grammatical placement. They would get the fourth person placement. uppbunetuned. He left it alone while Ween was sleeping. Then our Godwin form for un ending VTI2 verbs. Let's try it with lose it, wanted tune. I apologize, my cat is yelling. Wanted tune, lose it. You know, when I lost it, or in this case, well, instead of wanted to yawn when I lost it, or wait, hang on, I'm putting that in past tense again. Gi wanted to yawn when I lost it. And gi gush came done. I was sad. But when I didn't lose it, or so all of these I'm gonna put in past tense, we're gonna use gi in front of it, gi when I did not. One, two, and now we need a form of C. It's going to be C, one. And here we're talking about neen, I or me, and we have that similar on in there that is reminiscent of the yan that indicates I or me. So there's like these similarities that kind of carry through all of the paradigms. If you notice and you pay attention to the patterns, they are there. Gi wanted to suan when I did not lose it. In Gi min wingdan, or Gi min wingdom, I was happy. When you did not lose it, that would be Gi wanted to see one, only one A, shorter. He wanted to see one. When he did not lose it, we start with Gi as well. Calcifer, please stop meowing. Cal, shh, come here. Come back, Bijan. Bijan. Ani. Ik on Ani. My cat came over. Oh, Bijan. Anyway, he or she, when he or she did not lose it, and here is my cat. This is the guy making all of the noise. I mean, he needed to make a hello there. All right. He wanted to for ween, sick, and then just a G on the end. Wanted to sick, and this right here is our negation C when he or she did not lose it. And it follows the same pattern. Like when we, but not you, did not lose it, we have Gi wanted to Siwang. And here's our double A that indicates neen, but we have this that makes it neen a wind, and this is the part that makes it negative. If we're talking about us all, when we all did not lose it, he wanted to say, whoa. It shortens back down to the geen form, and then the us geen wind form over there, and here's our C that makes it not happen. Then let's see. When used did not, you lose it. Gi wanted to sue. We get our C in here, and then we still have egg in there that indicates you all. For we know while when he or she, more than one he or she, they did not lose it. Gi, this is our past tense. Then we have wanted to. This one's a little bit different. Instead of wad, we get our si, our negation here, and then we get sig wa. We get a g, gi wanted to sigwa when they did not lose it. And when obviative, when Godug did not lose it, when the obviative did not lose it, it's wonder if you can getting pretty close to the bottom here. D wanted to sit and then Nick. He wanted to Sinig when Godug did not lose it. So that was our un ending verbs. And then we have our VTI 3 verbs. And those, there's very few of them. We have mijin for eat it, like eat your sandwich. Mijin get betunigan, eat your sandwich. Or nadi, nod, fetch it, go get it. We'll use nodded because I want to add a plural and a possessive in there. So nodded, fetch it, go get it. Noddin. I'm just gonna write fetch it, but it means go get it. Go off and get it. So go get your book. So when you get your book, be form, when you, that's gin, and we know that our verb is nodded. So when you get your book, nade, and the difference is your end falls off again. Oh, that's strange. Yeah, nade, your end falls off again. And it gets replaced by your pronoun here. Yan for, oh, sorry, that's mean. Yan, gin. So this is gin, you. Guess I'm a little all over the place tonight. I apologize. Nadian, when you fetch it, but what are you fetching? Are you fetching your coat? Let's say, I'll write coat, but means the koagin. Some people say buck bean the koagin. Some people just say beans the koagin. I don't know which is more commonly used in the White Earth area, so that's just the form of the dictionary. So I'll put beans the koagin. And I've heard that quite a bit around here. So Nadian get. It's just a form of gin that you stick onto the front, your coat. Nadian get babinsa koagin when you fetch your coat. Gita nadin gimakasinan. Or gita nadinan gimakasinan. You should get your shoes too, right? That could be something like get da nadin, and now I'm adding a plural agreement here, nadinan, because I'm going to be talking about more than one thing. Get mukizin is one shoe. Mukizin. And then more than one shoe, mukizin un. So that's how a compound sentence would work. Nadian means a koagan. Get that nadinan, get mukizin un. When you fetch your coat, You should fetch your shoes. I hope that makes sense. I find that B form really gives me a lot of movement in the language. I'm able to say a lot more knowing what these are, but I do have to often reference my negative paradigms because I don't use them very much. And what you don't use very often, you don't remember. So I took a picture with my phone of all of my paradigms, and then I put them all in an album that I entitled conjugation or language or something like that. So I know that I can look it up if I need to. It's right at my fingertips. But yeah, that was how to put a single gene possessive onto something. You just put get in front of the noun, your coat. If it were my coat, it would be knit or nim, because it still follows the same form of mean rule. So nim in front of a B, nim means a coagin, my coat. All right, so, and like this follows that same pattern as the others, where it's like the N falls off and you get some form of yan, yun, with the exception of lean, the N falls off and it gets replaced with D. So when he fetches it, did. When he fetches it. When we, but not you, fetch it, Nina went. Not young. Not no N, and you get, this is when I fetch it, but I want it to be when we fetch it. Not young. When we, including you. So we start by writing when you fetch it, not yun, and then add a G. When we, including you, fetch it. When yous fetch it. Nade yeg. When nade what? When Winawa, when they fetch it. Nade what? And when Godug fetches it. Nade nid. So these are all positive paradigm B form, when, as, or if. He fetches it, we fetch it, we including you fetch it, you all fetch it. When they fetch it, when the fourth person fetches it, and so on and so forth. But if we want to make this into a Gaussian form, because you did not fetch it, not did we go, oh, not as, no, not use, we're going back to singular you, not as sit. So one, we go right back to the C1 form, just like in un ending verbs. In VTI 2 verbs, it's the same paradigm thing. Is it the same? So see. Yeah, it's the same paradigm as un ending verbs. Nade si one, when you do not fetch it, or gi, when you did not fetch your coat, ge bin de koagen. When we did not fetch our coats. So let me remember, I'm gonna pause this for a second. All right, so gi nadisuan ibabin to koagen. When you did not get your coat, or when he did not get his coat. We're gonna go with he, time tense, past. Nådde sig when he did not fetch it. Oh, begynnsepågen. The O is the possessive for wean, his coat or her coat, singular. When we, but not you, did not fetch our coats. Nådde sig one. Here's our form of C. Nin with the plus the G to make it Nina wind. E not a siwang. We have a form of nin in front because we're talking about Nina wind. Nim. But in ze kawagan. And then this says my coat right here. But if I want to talk about all of our coats, we need inan. That's all of our coat. So that's like saying we, but not you, all own one singular coat. So we're going to add an. Nimbabinsakawagan inanan. That's really tiny, I'm sorry. Ran out of room there, but nim inan or ni inan is ours Nina wind. And then this here, an, makes it plural for something and a noun that is inanimate. And that's going to be showing up in lessons, so on and so forth. So I would say write this down and like this and this, so you'll have it written down for possessives for inanimate nouns, and then you'll start getting used to how to say it. That's something I said a lot to my students was, you should fetch your backpacks or your packs. So I'd say, kita not in awa, kita not in awan with the n on the end. You all should fetch them. Ge mashkimod iwan, and I would have ge mashkimod, and then iwa is the your plural backpack, but since there's more than one black backpack, I had to add an N. So I said that a lot, and so I'm going to go over these things because you're probably going to be using plural possessives in for nouns and for plural nouns when talking to students. And so I'll keep bringing it into the lessons. And then let's see. Inada sig, inada siwang, nimbabintakoa, gandanan. Now, when we all, including you, did not fetch our jackets, C1, the same as gin, add a G to make a G in the wind, get, but being to kawagan and non-un, ours, all of our coats. Gi nada siwang, gi babin to kawagan and non-un, gi kadji, Gikajim, we were cold. Hinada siwang, Gipapin Tapawagan and non right. And then see, use. When use, he did not fetch your coats. or your backpacks. Let's use backpacks, not siweg. So our form of si, weg, to make it I and a wa, more than one U, and then use, our form is get, noun, iwa, or more than one, plus one. So mashkemot is our word for bag. Ge, mash, ge, mod, iwa, ge mashkemot diwan. So the ge mashkemot is your backpack or your pack. Ge mashkemot diwa, yours, all of yous collectively own one single backpack, or Gimashkimodiwan, all of yous collectively own your own individual backpacks. That's what that N does on the end, plus one, more than one pack. Now, Gi Nade Sigua for when they all, Sigua, did not fetch their backpacks. The only thing that changes here, I believe, I really hope I'm not misremembering this. O for the form of lean, O mashkamod would be his or her backpack, but we're talking about more than one him or her. O mashkamod iwan un, collectively their plural backpacks. And to be honest, I don't know how to say his backpack if the person is obviated, if it's in Godug form. So I'm gonna have to ask that, and I'll make note of it in one of the lessons. But let's see, when Godug did not fetch it, na de sinig or sinig. When Godug, fourth person obviative, did not fetch it. All right, so that's B form, and thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, send me an email or post it in the class.